What's up, you guys? Welcome to Market Monday episode 2 with your boy Colio and
GP, what's up, guys?
so we're fired up. We're going to keep today's episode, you guys, pretty brief. So let's start with some good old technicals. On today's episode, we're going to be covering 3 different pairs, GBP, JPY. We're going to also be covering USD CAD, which is a new pair, and also Euro USD. So UCAD we haven't covered before, but let's start with the basics. Let's start first with GJ. So prediction for GJ. So what happened, right? What are the technicals? What's going on? JP is going to cover this part, you guys, but the G20 meetings obviously had quite an effect as we expected some positive announcements from Brexit. So it spiked this up pretty tremendously, okay? And what happened here is it actually completed a move at 149. It hit around roughly the 149.50 level. It got up to a high of 149.68. And what ended up happening was it hit a 38.2 fib on a higher time frame, you guys. And from there, we saw that nice, crisp rejection. Okay, after the rejection, we saw this thing pop down all the way to 148.43 before doing a small rebound. And from there, we saw it bounce up into this area. Now, what is the next move? The next move we have is projected downwards. As you guys can see, I already have a trade in place with my entry point right where the middle line is, my take profit down here, my stop loss up here in the scenario that this trade goes wrong. And I have it strategically placed in a point at 149.55, you guys. So if it is to go higher, and it hits the stop loss, most likely it'll actually cross up and go even higher, meaning we were in the wrong direction in the first place, so there's no point in being in the trade. However, due to obviously some fundamental aspects and the technicals, currently, you guys, GJ should be in a bearish outlook for the majority of the remainder of the week, and we should see this thing fall a little bit lower as it was rejected pretty heavily on the daily chart. It is still testing this overall weekly line, right? The weekly trend line that was broken, it is still testing it. It is still trying to come above it, and we are not seeing anything happen. So as for the next take profit, we're looking at a short-term take profit, as you guys can see, of 148. From 148, we may or may not see a bounce, and beyond that, we're going to be breaching lower levels, and I am expecting this thing to break 147 and fall even lower with a long-term take profit target at 145. That has not changed yet, so we're still waiting on 145 to hit. That is the overall with GJ. As you guys can see, this trade is slowly going into profit, but I would recommend, unless you're wanting to take an aggressive and risky trade, generally do not take trades until after the confirmation, okay? Meaning after you see the bearish confirmation. We have not seen that yet, but I am playing this trade a little bit more aggressive, managing my risk appropriately according to the account size to make sure that I don't overexpose myself. So with GJ, you guys, next runner-up, Euro USD. So what's going on with EU? It did a lot of fake outs, as EU usually does, right? A lot of people trading it. Huge amounts of just volatility and liquidity all over the place being injected into EU. Obviously, it had a positive effect from not only the news, you guys, but just the overall formations that we're seeing, okay? So we're still waiting for a break above 123.75. If we see the break above 123.75, there is a potential. There's 2 options that could really happen. It can pop up to 124.70. As you guys can see, the 78.6 fib between the 124.70 and the 125 area, and then it can do a mean fake out and then drop. If it does that, it should go all the way down to 120, down to the 120 levels. Alternatively, what we can see is a continued uptrend, meaning if we see a nice breakthrough here, it's a nice clean break. This can actually continue up, and the next projected target beyond that, as you guys can see, is the 126 range, which actually has been a longer term target this entire time, you guys. I've been saying, hey, watch out. EU will be shooting for a 126 long-term target. Even longer term beyond that, it'll go higher. So we're going to be looking at 130 levels down the line, not just yet. First thing we're looking for is this break. So on the 4-hour chart, we can see that it is inching. We had a rejection here, but as you guys can see, because it's still going higher, the rejection isn't really being fought in the direction that it was initially trying to show. We see a nice bullish close here, indicating a potential morning morning candle. Okay, and then which that will in turn indicate further uptrend, assuming we get another bullish day from EU to really give us that confirmation that we need to take this for a long-term buy. Now, I personally am already in buys on this trade. This has been quite the ride as this consolidated, right? So you don't want to trade consolidation. You generally want to avoid it. However, because we have fundamentals on our side, backing a certain amount of this up, okay, and also the G20 meetings causing some turbulence in the market, I do believe we can grab between 50 and 100 pips in profit on EU, whether it fakes out in the end and pumps down or not. So that's EU, you guys. My expected trajectory is higher up. Next target, we're looking at 124. It's at 123.47 right now. So we're expecting at least another 50 pips up before any sort of rejection. If it breaks 124 and heads higher, next projected target beyond that really is 125, right? Between the 125 and 125.50 zone. And then if it continues beyond that, we're looking at 126 easily being breached in the next 1 to 2 weeks, okay? Possibly within this week, but we're going to see what is on the line with fundamentals. And the last pair, you guys, keeping it short, USD CAD is short and sweet. We're looking at rejection. We're looking at a longer-term bearish trend. And why are we looking at that? Simply put, it's at weekly support right now. For one. For two, we're seeing a rejection off the 61.8 fib on a higher time frame, right? So that's really going to add some shifts in the market, right? So from here, let's pump this out, and we'll see right there that rejection off of the 61.8 fib is really indicating that next move. However, let's keep in mind we still had a very bullish week, and this can and has the potential to move up higher than what it currently is right now. So I have not actually entered in any positions on this. I am waiting for some additional confirmation, more so than what we already have. However, on a 4-hour chart, you guys, we have an evening star at the top. Not a very strong one though, as we saw rejection here, and then we saw some massive consolidation for the past roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, so roughly 16 hours, you guys, and now we are kind of waiting on that next move. However, the next move that I'm expecting personally is a move to the downside, as we see this doji on the daily chart indicating a little bit of confusion in the markets and indicating some potential downtrend being expected. Beyond that, there are a few other signals indicating the downtrend, not to mention the pattern has not yet completed. The bearish run that we expect from UCAD has not yet completed, you guys. We are expecting a run all the way down closer to the 115 to 116 levels, and it is still at 131, ripe for the pickings. So with that, those are the expectations from the technical perspective. I think there is potential on every single one of these, but only time is going to tell, right? There is no guarantee in the market. But with that, I'm going to throw it over to JP, and he can kind of cover the fundamentals on Euro, on the GBP, and you guys, and on the US dollar. So let's see what we have in store for that. JP, throwing it over to you, bro.
Yes. Just one thing real quick. Can you pass over, so the pound, so GG, we're expecting which direction?
GG, we are expecting, from a technical analysis standpoint, we're expecting GG to head lower, as of now. Yeah. Yep.
And the euro?
And the euro, we're expecting for the next several days until later in the week, we're expecting some upwards momentum to push through, possible fake out. And UCAD, USD CAD, probably a little bit of consolidation. Nothing for sure on this pair, but the current bias is for now bearish. However, that might change just as sentiment and fundamentals roll in. So for the earlier part of the week, we're expecting some bearish moves.
Okay, so just real recap real quick. GJ down, EU up, and then USD CAD in
down.
a range.
Yeah.
Maybe end of this week that it will start its new trend, right?
You got it.
Okay, so let's start with the pound. Right, I just did it for the guys that are going to watch the video. Real quick recap of what Cole you just said. Basically, it all ends up at this point that we are right now, right? So what do the fundamentals say, right? If we're looking at the pound, what happened today? So today the pound flew up almost 250 pips from the G20 meetings, just off of the G20 meetings in the morning, because it got some Brexit love. That's what everybody's saying, okay? So there's new hopes for Brexit, that a good deal is going to be, strike, and that the pound will react good to that, right? Because the government of Great Britain does not want the economy to suffer as much as it should if they're gonna do Brexit, right? Next to that, also, Euro got some love from that also. Okay, so that's why Euro kind of went up today as a day, right? Because of the same thing. But of course, it's pound news, and that's why the pound flew up 250 pips. So we're looking at a Brexit, Brexit confidence, right? That basically provided the upwards push for the pound, but there is no deal yet on the Irish border, right? So that's what people are in anticipation for that. There's G20 meetings. There were G20 meetings today, and there's gonna be G20 meetings tomorrow. Okay, so anything that can be said in these speeches affect the market. At this moment, you guys have to grasp the the bias, the fundamental bias, which is Brexit confidence and no deal on the Irish border yet. If they see something tomorrow that they're like, oh, hey guys, yesterday we were really positive on Brexit because we were looking forward to this deal and this deal, but just this morning we talked with Prime Minister of Europe and looks like it's not going to happen. Boom, you're going to get a bearish reaction towards that. Okay, so just have that in mind. These predictions for the fundamental analysis, they're really sketchy to do. You can't do them because you have to be live in the moment reacting to what the market is saying. Okay, that's for the pound. Next to that, right now, as of this moment, the pound is kind of waiting for inflation. Okay, so there's going to be inflation data coming up tomorrow morning. Yes, that's going to be at Central Time. Let me have a look real quick. It's going to be at 5:30 a.m. So tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m., we're going to have pound inflation data. Okay. What people are expecting was, I saw that Goldman Sachs, was it Goldman Sachs? No, sorry, Barclays are expecting no change in the employment, and the RBC Bank is because of average earnings growing from January. They're expecting a bit of inflation for that. But again, we don't know what it's going to do, and that's why you have to be in the moment. You have to be present to react to what the market is going to say. Okay. Most probably, if it aligns with the technicals, it's going to be bad news. Okay. And if it's even good news, it can be outweighed by G20 remarks, right? If it's good news for inflation, we can probably expect bad remarks for G20 or good remarks, right? And then we have to go in a totally different direction if that happens at all. Okay, so that's for the pound. Now moving on to the euro. So the euro started the week pretty, bullish, not so much. But like I'm reading here, the eurozone economy is enjoying a solid first quarter of 2018. A stronger global appetite has boosted exports and the manufacturing sector, while unemployment continues to drop. However, inflation, again, we come to inflation, which has persistently hovered at low levels, continues to pose a problem for policy makers. Okay, what inflation, right? Inflation is the price of goods in a country, right? It's everything, the price of everything. If inflation goes up, everything becomes more expensive, leading to a more valuable currency. Okay, so if we're talking about Europe right now, inflation is at low levels. That means that the euro, so the euro currency, is not as valuable as it should be, as they wish it was. Okay, so basically what they're looking at right now is inflation, and so they want the inflation data to start popping because they're worried about a low inflation. So if I keep reading, in fact, Eurozone final CPI has been dropping in recent months, and this worrisome trend continued on Friday, last Friday, when the indicator dropped to 1.1, down from 1.3 a month earlier. This marked the weakest gain since December 2016. ECB President Mario Draghi addressed inflation concerns last week and sounded cautions of blah, 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 blah. So this guy wants to make inflation go up, okay? So if we look at that, then Mario Draghi, as the president of the European Central Bank, he's going to do everything he can, right, to drive it up, which would probably happen with events, okay? And if we're going to look at events, for upcoming events, we have, yes, we do have some Euro events tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Let me grab this. I have it written down right here. So, if we're expecting positive for the Euro, then it will probably happen somewhere around tomorrow morning, maybe G20 meetings. They're going to say something, right? So we know that they want to up the inflation of the country, right? So look out for that. Be live, so be present in the situation when everything is happening. And then you probably also can react to the market, knowing the technicals, okay? So if you move on to the US dollar right now, we are looking at nothing really happening as of now. Again, the G20 meetings, they're live events, right? People are talking, people are making statements, and these statements can affect the market and can affect the currency, okay? So tomorrow, man, G20 meetings again, right? You have to be present to know what's going to happen. Have like a live something on television, Bloomberg, and then you can keep up to date with the markets. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have Canadian news. Also, it's not going to be that that heavy, right? It's not that heavy of a news event. But if it's really negative or if it's really positive, then something is going to happen to the markets, right? So fundamentals change day by day. As of now, what you can expect the US dollar to really start to move and make its big movements would be from Wednesday and past. So if we're expecting the US dollar to kind of enter a range and then drop further down the week, we can probably expect that to happen Wednesday through Friday. Okay, so be prepared for that. Until then, know your technicals, right? Because if there's no fundamentals, you have to look at your technicals. Okay, that's it, man. G20 meetings, be present and be alert. Yeah, we know the bias, so anything changes from that bias is going to affect the market. If it's more positive than our bias, or more negative from our bias, then it's going to affect the market, negative or positive. Right?
Awesome. All right, you guys. Trade safe, trade professionally. As always, manage your trades. Risk management, always number one key. With that, have an awesome night. Phenomenal rest of the trading week. Subscribe, hit the little bell button, you guys. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. And on top of that, tune in next Monday and also this Thursday for technical throwbacks. With that, let's kill the markets this week. Peace.